This is GrantTalk, hosted by Libby Hikind, founder and CEO of GrantWatch and author of The Queen of Grants.
Hi, everybody. I'm Libby Hikind, founder and CEO of GrantWatch.com, and I am your host today on GrantTalk. We have a wonderful show prepared for you, so hit that subscribe button right there and give us a like before we start. I'm sitting here today with Ryanne Jennings, and she's the president and CEO of the Wayne County Community Foundation in Pennsylvania. And we're going to hear from her and find out what her foundation does. They are funders. Thank you, Ryanne, for joining us.
Thank you for having me today. I'm so excited to talk a little bit about the Wayne County Community Foundation. We're the one located in Northeastern Pennsylvania. There are a few others across the United States. Wayne is a popular county name. But we're a traditional community foundation in that we pool community resources in a variety of funds, scholarship funds, donor-advised funds, field of interest funds. And then we work a lot with community groups on community leadership projects, things to address education, workforce, substance use disorder, transportation, housing, etc.
So if I was in Northeastern Pennsylvania and I wanted to make a donation that I felt, well, my small amount of money might not do something really great, but if I donated to your organization, then you can just make a cumulative grant, right? You could take all those funds and support a project.
That's exactly right. So we accept donations of all sizes, and some donors support us, and then we can address community needs as they pop up. And then we have other donors that might establish a fund with us that's named or intended for things that they particularly care about. And so we do both.
Wow. So that really gives people an opportunity to know exactly where to send their money at one time, because lots of times people tithe, then give, which just for anybody who doesn't know, that's like 10% of their earnings for charity. And then they have to give it to this organization, a small amount, and to that. And here you have something that's very cumulative.
Exactly.
What happens with faith-based organizations? Can they apply to you?
Certainly. We don't support, with our grant program, we don't support faith-based activities, but we do support different projects that are at churches or places of worship or faith-based organizations. And we do support if they need infrastructure upgrades, if they need, especially for community rooms, that many of them are community hubs in our local community. So we have churches that might have AA or luncheons or things like that. So if they needed a new refrigerator, or new flooring, or doing community programs that weren't necessarily faith-based, we would certainly support that. We do also host a fund called the Ministerium, and it's an interfaith ministerium. This was established with a donation from local folks. That this was like a legacy donation. And that brings together folks across multiple faith organizations, and they work collectively and make some grants out of that fund as well.
So how did you get started?
So the Community Foundation was established in 1991, and it was actually established with dollars that were a part of a bequest from Ben Franklin himself. He bequeathed money that was then endowed for 200 years. And after the 200th year, they had to decide what to do with it. And so they determined that they would distribute it across community foundations across the state of Pennsylvania. And at that time, our founders had heard about this on the news, and they said, why not our community? Why can't we have one of these community foundations? And so we were established in 1991 with that small amount of money, and have grown over time. First 15 years, it was volunteer run, building up scholarship and donor-advised funds. And then there was a part-time executive, my predecessor, who was there for about 13 years, continuing to build community connections. And once we reached $5 million in assets under management, you have to build up the different systems, the accounting systems, the organizational systems. So it was time for a full-time staff member. So I began in the fall of 2019, and now we have a team of 4 and about $15 million in assets under management across 160 plus funds at our organization.
That is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
How much money do you give out a year?
Well over $1 million across our different funds. We do give grants twice a year. We're now a annual schedule to try to encourage nonprofits to ask for a bit more substantial dollars. And so the grants committee meets twice a year for those main grants. And then our donor advised funds provide grants as well. We have some different grant opportunities that address different communities, like the Michael J. Bryant Fund gives grants specific to folks living with disabilities. We have one for youth targeted grants, and that one's actually decided by the youth of our community, a youth advisory committee. So all of our website has a variety of grants. And then we have an emergency grant pot of money as well that is at the discretion of our executive committee. So if a nonprofit really was in a funding bind, they could ask us and we would make that possible throughout the year.
So you fund nonprofits. Do you
Correct.
fund businesses and individuals as well?
We don't fund individuals directly. It would have to be a referral through a nonprofit to support them in one way or another, with the exception of scholarships. So that's quasi-individual funding.
Right.
That it's really going
But
to
you could write that check to the college or university.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we do have a micro-lending fund that NEPA Circle of Aunts and Uncles. It was modeled after a program out of Philadelphia that we worked with their group to establish here. It's a very small micro-lending fund, up to $10,000, and a loan that is then paid out over time, usually 3 to 5 years, and then goes back into the fund to then distribute to the next business that needs a loan, usually for something that is tangible or a facade improvement or a piece of equipment upgrade, things like that.
So I want to go into the vetting process now.
Sure.
I understand that you have advisory groups that will make the decision on different grants, but based on what?
Great. So we have a team of 4 of us that work in the office, and we're well ingrained in the community. And so when we get our grant applications in, we review them. We ask that the nonprofits have a phone call with our grants manager staff member to be able to answer any questions, make sure that their ask is appropriate. We are a small community foundation, and so our general grant making each year out of the request that is like our regular grant ask is about $80,000 in a budget. Now, there are exceptions to that. We have ways of adding to that if there's a unusual request or things like that. But generally, we're about $80,000. And so if you're asking for a $150,000 capital ask without talking to us, we don't want to waste anyone's time. And so usually a conversation helps to target that ask to something reasonable.
But that is after the grant is submitted.
Preferably before the grant's submitted.
Oh, really?
So
Great.
the ask is in line with what we might have to offer. The opportunity there also is that we have a connection of a variety of other funds. We have connections with a variety of other funders, private foundations. And so if we might not be able to make the full grant, we might be able to pull in a partner to support that and be like, we're interested in supporting this grant. We can put in 10. Can you put in 10? And that's how a lot of funders work together to make a project happen.
So they start with a phone call
Before
they spend all that time completing the application.
Correct.
Now, when you look at the application, besides the dollar amount, which is, that could be a red alert if it's way too high or too low because they might not be able to even run the program, what are you looking for?
So we have a grants committee made up of our some of our board and a few folks who have served on our board previously but have stepped up. And they're looking for whether or not these organizations partner well with other organizations, like is this a collaborative grant? They're looking at the number of people served for the cost of the ask that they're doing. They're looking at whether or not they think this would be something that is sustainable. Is this a one-time infrastructure improvement, or is it a program that they're going to need money every year? If it's the latter, how do they plan to sustain that? Because we again, have limited assets, so we don't want to be considered a line item in the budget for continuing to fund something over and over again.
Right. I speak about that in my book, sustainability, also replicability.
Right.
To be replicated in another state, in another city, whatever, will they be a model?
Right. Yeah. And so that's all really important. We also look at which population of people or animals or who is being served with this grant. So the most vulnerable populations are certainly ones that rise to the top for funding. So we get requests for folks, for organizations that serve children in foster care, or looking for adoption, or low-income populations, people who have experienced domestic violence. Those populations, really, we understand are vulnerable populations and are going to need those dollars to support those organizations.
Okay. So we have dollar amount, eligibility, and that their mission is what your mission is and your vision of how you want to spend the funds.
Right. Right.
How do you let people know that they want a grant?
We send a letter. Our grants and outreach manager, Connor Simon, usually sends them a letter. He always sends them a letter. Sometimes it's a phone call. If it's a really big grant and they've been waiting out pins and needles, we might make that phone call. And then we also notify those that haven't received the grant funding, and we encourage them to stay in communication with us. So usually the reason that they're not able to be funded isn't because their grant is a bad ask or is written improperly, or we don't think that it's deserve it to have a grant money. It's usually just budget related that we can't fund that. So we do encourage them to apply again and stay in communication with us. And really, grant applications that we might not be able to fund, we really do try to find, whether it's a donor advised fund or another avenue for funding, we try to connect them so that their projects can come to fruition.
So a rejection is not always a rejection. And that's what people need to know. Sometimes you ran out of money for this year. You might want them next year. You'll help them out somehow. And what if, let's talk about AI for a minute. Do you get grant applications that have no passion, that seem like they were written by AI?
We've gotten a few. I've gotten some job applications that are resumes also. I don't know that it's caught on quite yet for our smaller nonprofits to use AI. So usually we see more just that they copied and pasted last year's application in. But I expect that will happen in the future. I think we all can detect AI pretty well, and we use it in our office as a starting point. But I do encourage people to edit AI to make it sound more personal. And ensure that it's not.
That's what I find, that AI is a great tool, but it lacks passion, it lacks energy, and it lacks the backstory.
Yes.
Right? That's what's missing. Yep. So they can use it for their statistics, for their goals, but there has to be their own writing in there. They have to realize what you take and what you don't take.
Yes.
So
and I just want to reiterate your point that a rejection it's really a not yet. Rarely is it like a hard no, we're not going to fund this ever. That happens every once in a while if they're not a 501c3 or they just started and really don't have their act together yet. But even then, if they put in the work, it's a not right now, not a hard no.
Right. I always tell my smaller nonprofits, you have to become grant ready. If you're not grant ready, you can't apply.
Correct.
So create that folder, get everything together, your financials, your mission, your your IRS determination letter, everything, so you're ready.
Yes.
And then when a grant is available, you can apply.
Yes.
And I hear you have one that's open right now that's due in May?
We do. March 1st is our next deadline. And so that's coming up quickly. And we've been in conversation with many different nonprofits about that. And so it'll be March 1st and September 1st this year to be able to submit. And so we encourage people to reach out to us if they live in Wayne County, Pennsylvania. But if you are listening to this and you have never worked with your community foundation, there are community foundations all across the country, and they're eager to help. And community foundations are our whole business model is to support the community and support the nonprofits serving the community. So we're really an honest broker, and we don't have any other alternative motive other than to help the nonprofits and the community.
How has GrantWatch helped you?
You know, I really appreciate this opportunity. It is a challenge to have the opportunity to explain what a community foundation is, because it's both a nonprofit and a funder. So we have to fundraise for ourselves and give away the dollars that are given to us. So it's we're kind of in this middle ground of nonprofit and funder relationship. And so GrantWatch is a great outlet for people to not only learn about how to write grants, what are grants, and kind of demystify them, because people really are scared. They're scared of rejection. They're scared of the amount of work that it might be. But you don't get if you don't ask. And so we ask often, and we really encourage our nonprofits to ask often. I certainly never feel offended if people are asking often. That means they're doing their job.
Right, and they need more money because they're going to serve more people.
Exactly.
So that makes a lot of sense. Okay. If you had a wish for your community foundation, what would it be?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. We are in a very tumultuous time, and we also have such a big opportunity of a transfer of wealth that's coming down the pike, of folks that are getting ready and starting to prepare their wills or update their wills. And so my wish is for people to consider leaving 5% to their community foundation wherever they might live, so that communities have a chance to continue to build and prosper and thrive for many years to come. So that would really be my wish for every community foundation, particularly ours.
That's really nice. What tips or advice would you give anyone writing a grant today?
I would do your research. Find the resource. There are so many resources on how to write grants well, and just try it. And start with a small one. Start with a very non-complex application. Community foundation applications are usually very user-friendly. Don't start with a federal or state grant, because you'll get tired and frustrated. So start with one that doesn't require a login, maybe, to get into it. And I'd also really recommend speaking with whatever foundation you're applying for, speaking with the staff member first about what are their goals, what are their objectives, does your nonprofit align with that? That conversation will be fruitful either way. And that builds trust, that builds relationship with the funder. So I would encourage not to ever do a cold application into a funder. Always try to reach out and make that contact first.
So people should not be afraid of picking up the phone. That's very important, because
call, send an email, see if you can find a time. They're all very eager to help. And funders need the nonprofits to execute the work. They're not usually in the position that they're doing the work on the ground, and they have to give their money away. So we are in a relationship with nonprofits. We need them, they need us. It's reciprocal.
And how will people find you?
You can go to our website at waynefoundation.org. It's got information about our grants, our scholarships that just opened for our community, and information about our organization. Our updated strategic plan is on there, and annual report, so you can dive into what we've got going on.
And we have your grants on GrantWatch, so take a look.
Wonderful.
Look up Pennsylvania, you'll find them. And it's such a pleasure to meet you. You're doing great work.
Thank you.
And think about all the people that you've helped over the years since 2019, and your organization before that as well. So really, congrats to you.
Thank you.
Keep going, because we need people like you.
I appreciate it very much. This is a community I grew up in. I moved out of the area and moved back. And so I am trying to create a community that I want to live in, and that I want my children to be raised in this environment. So every grant that we're issuing, every project that we're working on, it's trying to better the community for the next generation. So thank you so much for having me and the work that you're doing. Appreciate it.
And, I feel the same way as you. And they're a little bit further away from me, my books. But here I am, CEO of GrantWatch. I wrote this book, The Queen of Grants. And now I've gone into another total area, because I'm looking at my grandchildren also. And while they're all over the world right now, I also want to make sure that I can build something, for the world. So I just started. I've written 2 books. I just want to share them with you. This one.
Beautiful.
And this one also here. Here's another one.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So I'm trying to put a little bit of values, education, understanding of people's emotional place, and how we come out of it, because that's really important right now. And there's not much to read, because we've had so many years of everything's changing in the in the environment. And I'm
What a wonderful legacy for your grandchildren. That's awesome.
yeah, and it's actually, I put pictures on the back. So then you go, oh, there's grandma and grandpa, So
Awesome.
it's exciting. And then I'm going back so I have my third book that's in the works right now. And then I started Queen of Grants book 2. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, if you ever need a children's retreat, there's the Highlights Foundation, and Highlights for Children was established here in Honesdale. And so Highlights Foundation has a book authors retreat center, an education center in our area. So if you ever find yourself there, be sure to
I am going to find myself there.
Yeah.
I will look it up when we get around.
beautiful little cabins. The food is delicious. It's a beautiful environment.
Oh, that would be great. Because, I mean, it just happens to me. I don't know about you when it comes to work. Sometimes you get a whoosh,
Yes.
and all of a sudden I can write. And if I sat there trying to write a children's book, it could take me days.
Right.
But when the whoosh comes, the book is written.
Right.
My fingers can't work fast enough.
Yep. It all just comes at once. The floodgates happen.
Right.
Check.
And then I'm just waiting for the illustrations.
Yeah.
And working with the artists. So, yeah.
It's really fun. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you're doing your legacy, right?
Yep.
And GrantWatch is my legacy, but I needed to do something more because my grandchildren are not necessarily going to become grant writers, right? But they are readers. I hope that they're going to become readers. So I'm working on that as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I really appreciate reading with you. Today has been a very good morning. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad the internet worked out because it's very, very icy out here today. So things are
So just let's remind everybody, hit that subscribe button, give us a like so we can continue doing this. I really enjoy speaking with people because I get to find out how is GrantWatch helping the funders and the grant recipients and how everybody interconnects and what's going on behind the scenes. And we'll continue to bring that to you on GrantTalk. So thank you, Ryan.
Thank you for having me. It was nice speaking with you.
Thank you for tuning in to Grant Talk, powered by GrantWatch. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this GrantWatch channel. Please consider subscribing to GrantWatch.com, and you can find the book, The Queen of Grants, by going to GrantWatch.com/book. Thank you again for spending your time with us.